A pastor is preaching, teaching, or presenting nearly every day of the week. His success is essential. How he views his role or his capacity in this leading and feeding the flock of God is one of the 9 fundamentals of pastoral preaching. Welcome to the Better Sundays podcast. Focused, practical, and usable advice for church leaders looking to reach new young families and impact their community. Well, howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome to the 9 fundamentals of pastoral preaching. We're talking about the pastor and his preaching. We're in part 3, and we're focusing today on the idea of leading and feeding the flock of God. This is something, again, that is part of the pastoral character. We're not getting into message preparation quite yet because we're talking about what you need to be on the inside. It is essential as a pastor that you view your role in the right way. One of the words we kind of use when we're talking about this is the idea of a meal planner. It's, in other words, you are going to be planning out the meals that your people are going to be eating. If you were running a Bible camp or something, we used to do that. We would do Bible camps and we'd all get together and the cooks and stuff, we kind of do the meal plan, like, on this day we want tacos and this day we want here and this. And then we have to buy that, but we have to think about it and what we need to prepare it. And it was just kind of a longer view of, rather than just one simple meal here and one simple meal there. And as a pastor, how you view your role in all of that is absolutely essential. Let me tell you a story that happened to me that changed my viewpoint of what I was as a pastor. Many years ago, I planted a church out here in Sinclair, Wyoming. It was going very well. As we started to attract new young families, I realized that eventually I was going to have a younger person kind of take over for me, and retirement was going to be coming my direction. When I started to think of, where would we find somebody, one of the very first things that occurred to me and my staff, we talked about this, is it'd be really neat if we could find somebody that understood our church, someone that understood our philosophy, someone that was kind of with us already. And it made me think of maybe someone at this church could be the next pastor. Many times on the mission field, the nationals are developed to be the next pastor. And I thought, what could be better than a national, being the pastor of this church? I made a list of every single man in our church to see if they could what it would take for them to go. And as I started to go down this list, it really kind of changed my whole thinking in so many ways. I was looking at all these different guys, and some of them you kind of like, well, there's no way or whatever. Lots of different things kind of come to your mind. And then I really corrected myself. It's like, well, what would it take for me to develop that guy or that guy or that guy or that guy? What would it take for me to develop them into a pastor? What if they were the only one? What if there was no other choice? I would have to be a person to take them and really kind of move them up the ladder and really kind of get them going in a new way in their entire life. And it made me view my role as a developer. A developer, I think, sometimes is like someone that takes like the land and opens it up and turns it into a subdivision and a school here and a house there and a shopping center there and all the roads here and all that. They have great vision, and they have to have that as a pastor. You have to have that for your sermons, where you are going with your teaching and with your training. You need to view yourself as a developer. You're a leader of the sheep, you're a feeder of the sheep, but those two together, you have to have a long-term view of where you're going with everybody. Let me give you a couple things that helped me to kind of do this. So, first of all, I want to say that our thing here, the pastor and his preaching, is part of a YouTube series that we're doing, and part of our podcast series, and it is a longer series. We got 9 of these all together. There's an introductory one, and you can go back and find that. And if these are helpful to you and you like this, please share it with somebody else, or please post it in a Facebook group, or say, hey, this was helpful. I appreciate that very much. We like the thumbs up and we like the share buttons. If you can hit those and subscribe, all of that stuff is great. We do have some special training that we're doing in conjunction with this. and it has to do with this Zoom training where we're going to be having pastors, and we work with you one-on-one with your preaching and teaching and helping you kind of refine the most important skill that you have. And you can sign up for that at reachkeep.com/preaching, and that will be available in a few months. We will have that ready to go for you, and we're going to be having a class where you can join, and we'll all be together on Zoom and do some training. So we would love to have you. But here is this idea that you need to view yourself as a developer. So let's kind of go with this a little bit. When you want to view yourself as a developer, there's really kind of several different ways that I have done this. The first one is what we call A to B preaching. A to B. In other words, you're going to take somebody, you're going to move them from where they are to where they need to be. And your sermon or sermon series or your kind of preaching calendar is developing people and moving them forward. This is where we come up with this idea of every Sunday solve a problem. You are getting them from A, which is not where they're supposed to be, to B, where it's where they're supposed to be. You are developing them across a spectrum there and moving them to, and this is a new place. This is like a very solution-oriented type of thought. So keep this in mind. Think about your preaching. Where am I taking them? You're not just giving information. We are not called to be information transfer specialists, okay? We're called to transform people, okay? We don't just transfer, we transform, okay? So A to B preaching is one of the first ones. The second one here is what we call bar graph preaching, and this is where everybody's got a bar. I look at every person like a bar graph. Oh, this bar is good and this one's good, and they're up here and they're low here and low here. They're not all the different little levels of the bar graph. And this is where you start to develop people more in an incremental thing. So you're moving them not necessarily to a brand new position, but you're adding line upon line, precept upon precept. You're moving them forward, up in particular areas. And this is where you have to kind of pick those bar graphs. And as a pastor and a leader and a feeder, you need to know, wow, I need to really focus on giving. I need to focus on servant attitude. I need to focus on, the idea of people taking responsibility or child rearing. All of these are little topics, and you would get them up. Now, you may have a person that you work on very well, and they're very good in child rearing, but in the other bar graphs, they're down a little, and then you'll have to work on developing it. But that is what we call the bar graph, where you're working in very specific slots and helping people to move forward a little bit more in an incremental thing as you develop them. The last one is what they were just getting them to zero type preaching. And this is where you are teaching and you are developing them you're taking them where they've never, ever been before. You're not like A to B. They haven't even they don't even know an alphabet exists, okay? They haven't even made it to zero yet, okay? They're down in the negatives, all right? And this would be clearly the born again. You must be saved. They haven't even been spiritually activated. This might be where they have no idea that they are supposed to surrender their body, their mouth, their eyes, present themselves a living sacrifice. They have no idea of that concept. This might even deal with something along the line of like missions giving. People that they don't even know missionaries are. They've heard the word, but that's about it. They don't know that they should be involved with that and that we should go into all the world and they can give of their time and their treasures and their talents, and you talk to them about missions. So you're just trying to get them to zero. All of this is part of leading and feeding, and your role is to make this happen. And we need to view ourselves as developers. The word pastor is a very good thing, and it kind of deals with the idea of the shepherd of the sheep. If you've ever raised sheep before, and I have, you have to have a long-term plan for your flock. It's not just, throw them little food every day and move them to greener pastures, okay? There's a lot more to that, okay? Is how many babies are they going to be having, and and how can you get them to have more babies? That's part of it. And when are you gonna shear them, and where are you gonna take that wool, and what are you gonna do with those babies once they grow up? Are you gonna keep some back for breeding stock? Are you gonna take some of those lambs and take them to the marketplace? For a variety of reasons. There's all sorts of things that you have to have as a plan, and a pastor must have his role down pat that he is a developer. This idea of developing is kind of the idea of having this long view of taking people and moving them to brand new places. And it is one of the essentials in the 9 fundamentals of pastoral preaching that we're going to be covering in detail, and we'll help you develop your plan for your church with your people as we consult and coach with you and help you move forward with that. So I want to thank you for being here. If this has been helpful, again, this is just a tidbit, okay? We got a lot more that we do with the one-on-one with our coaching, but if this has been helpful for you, please give us a thumbs up. We appreciate that very much. We're going to be doing this as Zoom-based coaching. You'll be getting some information about that, and if the best way to get information is to sign up on our wait list and just go to reachkeep.com/preaching, and once you're there at reachkeep.com/preaching, put your name and your email in, and we'll be staying in touch with you on exactly how we can help you to develop in those areas of the 9 fundamentals. So please join us again next week. If this has been helpful, click the button at the end. There's a subscribe button at the end, and then there's also the next video that we have or the last video we have. Those are available. Go ahead and click on some of those, and we will see you next time here at the Better Sundays podcast at Reachkeep. That's pretty funny that I mispronounced my own thing. Reachkeep.com. God bless.